Welcome everybody to Windfall Reading Series March. Really excited to see everybody here. This is a nice crowd, and you're in for a real treat. We have two fantastic authors to hear from tonight, so hopefully it doesn't come off. So that's my little request. So we're also streaming live, so welcome to all of you there in the YouTube land. So some thank yous to a few groups. First, the Lane Literary Guild, without which this would not be possible. Thank you so much for all the programs you support and all the ways you support authors in Eugene, Lane County, and the surrounding area. I also want to thank the Friends of the Eugene Public Library and the Eugene Public Library Foundation. Both groups tirelessly fundraise and support and offer programs. We wouldn't have the programs we have, we wouldn't have the books we have, we wouldn't have the library we have without these important groups. So thank you for all that you've done. Yeah, so there are snacks over there. There are restrooms right around the back, so please help yourself and mingle and wander if you need to. This will go for about an hour, from 6 to 7-ish. This won't turn off at 7, so if we go past that, it's fine. And then there will be a lovely question and answer and a time to make some comments and just share your thoughts. All right, so please enjoy. And here's Erica from the Lane Literary Guild.
Thank you, Wendy, for that lovely introduction. And I'm Erica Goss. I am the treasurer for Lane Literary Guild. And I want to thank the library for hosting us here and giving us this warm and comfortable spot and providing snacks. And just point out that at the end of all of at the end of the reading and the questions, our authors will be signing books right over here. So if you want to buy their books, which I very much encourage, they will be right here to talk to you about them. Okay, I am very happy to introduce our first reader, Grace Richards, who's sitting right here. Worked in the entertainment industry in Los Angeles. I bet she has stories to tell. Taught ESL at the college level in Southern California and at University of Oregon. And in the last few most dramatic years, has found her poetic voice. Her work has been published in several online journals and in the anthologies Poems on Poems and Poets, hard to say, and Conestoga Zen. She is the author of 2 chapbooks, Mid-Century Modern and Other Poems, right over here, and Break Up Hair and Other Poems. Break Up Hair. That's a great title. So everyone give it up for Grace.
Thanks everybody for showing up. Now that partly on Zoom, I didn't know how many people would have to call. They tell a whole room full. Okay, well I have a selection from both books. And since we just came out of the pandemic and it's nice to be out and about again, I'm going to start with 3 poems I wrote during the pandemic. Screen Vision 1, 2, 3. So this is Screen Vision 1. My eyes focus on television images so cold, so flat. They seem to slide across the screen. They blur into each other. I long to connect with people, with the world. I long to see once again in 3D. I've been staring at screens for so many days. They've turned into weeks, and I fear I'm losing my depth perception, my perspective. My mind fills with random memories, obscurities, unresolved resentments, grief, regrets. Much easier to turn back to the screen and forget. Screen Vision number 2. The gorgeous image of flowers calls to me from my desktop. Some kind of orchid or lily, petals unfolding in patterned layers of hypnotic pastels, pink but not as cloying, lavender but not as blue, some combination of hues in their palest most delicate aspect. I want to wrap myself in the designs of soft light and shadow. The pink tones appear sensual and cool. They do not blush. Blues blend with creamy white, fanning into elegant curves. I long to press their silky shapes against the tender skin of my face and neck, to wear them in my hair, gentle scent wafting, exotic and sweet as old roses, even sweeter with no thorns. On the screen, the blossoms are wondrous, like a distant memory of life forms long extinct from our ever-warming world, or existing in a faraway land from which we've been exiled. Desktop flowers with seductive powers, improbable and elusive as the healing balm of Gilead. Green vision number 3. I want a glam shot like the poetesses in LA. Their photos and bios posted online with always three recently published pieces, a kind of trinity. We worship the words flowing down the screen, holy, pure, pristine, from some deep well of inner radiance and knowing. The pose, the clothes reflect cool sophistication. Jacket slung over one shoulder, a wide-brimmed hat tipped over one eye, just so. Forearms and hands in lacy fingerless gloves, nails painted purple or blue, a carefree fashionista attitude. These images seem ineffable, yet the poems speak, appearing on the page, hallowed and miraculous as a virgin birth. No awkward coupling, no bloody mess, no pain. Okay. I'm tired of the pandemic, so move on to the next one, which is written after Dorian Locke's Book of Men. And this is just about a guy I happened to see. I was out driving, and I kept seeing this guy across from me at the I stop, and then he'd stop over here at another stop sign. And anyway, it's called Traveler. Clad in black leather, straight and still as a statue, bearded and silver-haired beneath the armor of a dark helmet, his ancient visage sculpted and furrowed by the onrushing air, head unturning, blue stone eyes fixed upon the horizon. He takes in all that lies ahead on the narrow ribbon of road. The bike, black and gleaming, growls like a captured jaguar having submitted to domestication, awaiting its daily meal for its freedom. Purring now in a rich baritone, the idling engine powers up with sudden sonorous reverberation, thrilling and mellifluous, filling the hushed dusk. The rider pushes off, perfectly balanced, imperial and impervious, led on by the highway's bright parallel lines. He glides like a low-flying shorebird, skimming across past and present in singular fluid motion toward the timeless, transcendent promise of vanishing. Okay, and then I have several that I would describe as all about the nature of desire. Illicit. One woman, one man, so many stories to tell. Imagine one more. At the river's edge, startled birds flutter away amid tangled trees. Your dimples, your smile, your fathomless deep blue eyes make my heart leap up. Saturday market among the crowd, can't resist a cappuccino kiss. Fingers on bare skin are touching his poetry, its rhythm, our own. Morning cigarette takes you too soon from our bed. I breathe lonely air. Empty coffee cups, cool fog drifts in, bittersweet end. late blooms, dahlias in full flower, drunk on autumn sun, heavy magenta heads, emotive and glorious, many layered petals widened from spiraling saffron centers, curl and narrow to pointed tips, seductive as sensual lips. The topmost blossoms beckon, rich halos of luminous color. I want them, want to be them, sniff their long stems, place them in a crystal vase where they soon droop and die, lives severed amid sharp, prismatic patterns of light. A courtship. Amid the tangled crisscross silk she rests, sensing a suitor's gentle dance as he vibrates the outer strings of her web. He strikes a lyric chord in her tiny heart. She stirs and begins to sway her smooth arachnid hips in rhythmic seduction. Come hither, her round belly sings, its red-hot violin searing his eyes with lust. He moves toward her, legs wobbly with ardor and anticipation. She reclines upon her broad back, fangs open as if to say, welcome home. His dance is quickly done. He deposits his seed, but it's not over yet. Never one for sticky sentimentality, she bites his head off and swallows it whole. The quick closure of her triumph as she melts in waves. One I wrote more recently, it's not in either book, but it's about a puma in Southern California. It was looking for a mate and crossed from the Santa Monica Mountains. It crossed 2 freeways to make it to Griffith Park. And so this is the story of the day that he died. December 17th, elegy for P22. In the blue twilight of that day, did you remember the bounty of your younger years? The beauty of the deer, their movements graceful, their aspect serene as they grazed, unaware of your presence, until your leap, poised and exact upon the liveliest among them. Fear would propel her slender legs forward, away from the heat of your breath, even as she felt the fatal clench of teeth around her neck and the bloody tearing of claws on her soft underside, before falling into your limbs' eager embrace. On that December day, as dusk began to swallow the sunlight, your eyes followed a high-heeled woman clicking along the path with her pet on a leash. You made your leap, but was the chihuahua, mostly tiny bones and hair, worth your life? When the city crew caught you in their trap, did you know those scraps of dog meat would be your last? Once in the cage, did you relax in the knowledge and with weary relief that your search for a mate was done, that you had met your fate, that on this darkest of nights, your own winter had come? But he was, after the incident with the Chihuahua, he was captured and euthanized. He was suffering from several serious diseases, so they went ahead and euthanized him. He was 12 years old. Lita, #MeToo. The poets, in their propaganda, like to dance around the themes of faith and free will. Ovid and Yeats describe me as a beautiful young girl, specially chosen by Zeus, yet unappreciative and probably ignorant of the fact. My fate was to be born a woman. Against God's will, I don't stand a chance. I am staggering and helpless, unable to push away the swift, cocksure fowl with my vague, terrified fingers. I am surprised by the sudden blow, the swan's great wings beating still as it catches my neck in its sharp beak, as it lays me out on the damp, fertile ground, as it presses its bony, amnion body close against the softness of my throat and breast, that I might feel its strange heart beating where we lie. Its dark, webbed feet part my unwilling thighs. With hard insistence, it violates and impregnates me with wild Olympian seed. When it's over, I am bloody and bruised, my dress smeared with green algae drooled from its mouth. I am unimpressed by the feathered glory of this god in disguise, by the deception and artifice he undertakes for the act of rape. The poets say I was mastered by the brute blood of the air, that I was there, and that it was only their delusion. One more about desire. The rarest color, the most fragile of hues, blue cannot travel the full distance from its source, but is bent, scattered, dispersed, the color merely an illusion, a trick of the atmosphere. Red tones, scarlet, magenta, fuchsia, advance, fill up the space in a room, take all the air, they excite, quicken the pulse. Red's darker tones, burgundy, maroon, create a slower, cumulative effect, threaten to overwhelm, leave me quite breathless. Blue recedes, it beckons us to follow. We chase the illusion, feel a kind of joy, like the euphoria of the first drink, elusive, soon lost. Most magnificent antitheses, heights, depths, mesmerizing clouds, ocean waves that can never be possessed. Up close, water is not blue, but colorless, see-through. Difficult to discover, some digging required to uncover the blue in stones, turquoise, lapis lazuli, sapphires. Listening to the blues, sad songs of loneliness, remembering my long-gone lover's eyes. Now you, someone new. The blue in your eyes travels to the darkest corner of this bar, wraps around my wounded heart, soothes my sorrows. The blue in your song touches my soul, awakens my desire. So this first book I wrote was mostly about my divorce from my second husband, and this book was written a couple of years later. But I'd like to go back to mid-century modern. To kind of give you an idea of where I was when I wrote this book. Mid-century modern. At the entrance, 2 sets of stairs forced an immediate decision. Step up onto hardwood, an invisible corner, an uncertain hallway, or down a narrow carpet of steps swallowed by shadows. Avoiding the stairs altogether, a left turn led to a room crowded with mahogany, an air of abandonment floating among the chairs with high-backed curves and heavy legs, opaque corner windows hinted at a view. A mid-century house with no center, compact rooms in a horizontal row strung along the hillside like a corridor one hurries through on the way to somewhere else. The dying chi could never penetrate the sharp, staggered right angles, the obstacles of so many walls. The life force diminished, dissipated in the wasted space. You and I lost our love in that dimly lit maze of bad feng shui. The split level design doomed us from the start. foreshadowing hidden fractures. You introduced me as your current wife, with frequent mention of your last wife. Your ego demanded detailed disclosure. The 1980s world tour as guitarist for an artist famous then. The second house on an island with hair like a warm caress. But your social nature changed inside our front door. You migrated downstairs, incinerating false promises with bitter cigarettes. Now I find myself archived as your fourth former wife, the last entry in my couple more. I guess I'll go ahead and read Break Up Hair, the title of this book. And for this one, I borrowed a couple of lines from Sylvia Plath, one of my other favorite poets. Break up hair. Like Lilith rising from the Red Sea, having refused to submit to Adam, forever expelled from the Garden of Eden, replaced by Eve, that mouse. I carry on with my fabulous, freshly cut, flame-colored hair. Lovely like Rita Hayworth, not meter maid, as Gilda, coppery curls shimmering, cascading, sultry like Anne Margaret, hips swaying across the dance floor, singing bye-bye, birdie, bye-bye, or Julianne Moore, statuesque, alabaster, classic, regal like the first Queen Elizabeth, bright, tight waves drawn above her brilliant, aristocratic brow, erotic and ethereal like Venus on the half-shell, tresses long, luxuriant swirls draping around her hips in lush serpentine curves. Like a femme fatale, I might stalk you, seduce you with my new Betty Page bang. I'm dangerous, my shining hair stolen from the flames of hell. I'm electric, untamed, I'm a copperhead with a temper. I can take revenge. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair and I eat men.
Thank you, Grace. Those were amazing poems. Wow, I'll be thinking about that a lot. Break up hair. Dangerous stuff, people. All right, our next reader, where is she? There she is Brenda Johnson Kame'enui. Here's what it says about Brenda. Get Over It, maybe not all of it, is an Eric Hoffer Award finalist. And this is Brenda Johnson's first book, a memoir on love and loss, as well as those beautiful moments in life we don't want to get over. I sense a connection between this and the breakup hair. I don't know why. Brenda spent early years on the wild and scenic Selway River of Idaho, where Miss Calvert taught her to read in a one-room schoolhouse before her family moved over the mountains to Montana. Brenda studied Camus and poetry in college, and later she taught students to read, turning them onto the code, the word, and the story. If you want more, you can go to her website, BrendaJohnsonAuthor.com, or you could just sit here and welcome Brenda to the stage. Come on up.
Isn't this great? But thank you to the Lane Literary Arts Guild first for doing this, and to Joan Dobby, who's not here tonight. And Erica is managing her spot very well, but Joan Dobby organizes these things, and it's really a gift. I just heard 2 days ago the best lecture on how valuable it is to read to children and adults, to read to each other, because it's so much better than, well, and reading books is so much better than reading on the screen, because you remember things like that. There's a whole litany of reasons that we do this, but thank you for being here, because obviously you think so too. I also am a big supporter of the library, which you no doubt are. And I asked Dina, would you wave meet you. Dana is the director of the Eugene Library Foundation. And I asked her to bring me postcards because there's a campaign. The library took a big hit in the last budget, and we hope it won't again. So we're asking people to write why you love the library. And if you don't know your city councilor, there's a SKU out here. There is also the address of where you mail these. So afterwards, if you write those down, it'd be great. The campaign continues. Am I right? The title of the book was explained in my little thing, so that's good. You know, we all have things we want to get over. And mine was tears. I was so tired of crying over the same thing for way too long. And then there are all those wonderful things that we don't want to get over because they're remarkable. Whether it's a sunset or a new baby or a choral concert. If you like to, I like to read along. So if anybody wants to read along, grab a book and do it with me. But I'm in the prologue right now. I cried every morning those first months as I left our sorry house, where the only communication was a dark cloud and no one hollered, "Love you," on my way out the door. It was winter, and I set out for school on my bicycle in the dark. Tears spilled, rain hit the sidewalk, and my bike tire spun through puddles. I arrived at school with tears plastered to my cheeks. I put on a good face and bustled around the classroom to get ready for the cute kids who would soon race to be first to class. I taught them to read, or to read better. I was good at that. Hardship is no stranger to my students, nor is sadness. Many know loss, but they never knew mine. I hid it well until morning recess when I cried in the staff lavatory. My reflection in the mirror was awful. I washed my face, turned around, and returned to class to welcome my breathless students from the playground. I cried the minute I closed my classroom each late afternoon, climbed on my bike for the ride home. I cried 3 miles out of 9 on the route through the wetlands. I couldn't tell my own tears, from the rain on my cheeks, nor snowy egrets, but showy gulls. I liked being in a partnership. I liked belonging. We were in it together until we weren't. Carl Jung writes of belonging after his wife's death, that the whole vision of her rendered him speechless. I wanted to be that precious. It's a lot to ask. This is Wetlands on page 12. I close my classroom door and climb on my bicycle for the 9-mile ride home. October days are growing shorter, a contradiction returns. I'll be home well before dark, a gentle wind at my back. Another sunset will be spectacular in a few minutes. I pick up speed on the ride before I stop to turn and look behind me. Orange and purple ribbons of sky drift and dance in ripples just before the sun drops into the ocean. Today, the panorama over the Coast Range is dazzling. Some days, the sunsets make me weep. Most days in recent years, a hole in my heart makes me weep the minute my bike wheels start rolling. It occurs to me I didn't cry when I hopped on my bike this afternoon or in the last couple miles. Is it the weather, the autumn wonder, the color of the season that gives me a break from heartache? Thomas Merton writes of the crimson and gold of October, a perfect time to mount ambition and begin something new. I talk to my grown daughters often, especially the one who was in my time zone, but I didn't use them as counselors after their father left home. And after a few years, I stopped going to a real counselor. He was good, but how many tears can I shed on a cushy couch in an office that quivers with decades of anger and sorrow? And how many years can I say the same thing? I miss my husband, and I would love to just get over it. Join a book group, counselor suggested. I started one. Join a hiking group. I'm in one. Join a study group. I'm in 2. The counselor told me I was guileless, which I had to look up. and that I loved hard, which I didn't after that. What I know is that I don't want to cry for the rest of my life over missing a husband. I would like to get over myself. Get a grip. I have a pretty good grip. I haven't missed a day of work at school in the years since my husband left home. I actually haven't missed a day of school in 15 years. I have two grandchildren in Seattle, and when they were little girls, they came for granny camp every summer for a week. And the book jumps back and forth between before, this is little kids in 2013. Granny camp is over today. The last 6 days went too fast. My 3 and 6-year-old granddaughters are almost all fun. Their grandfather will be here any minute to pick them up. I've dreaded this moment all morning. The week began with no Tangle Tuesday trim, a quick haircut to reduce the hairbrush howler every morning. I swept a slick barber cape around their shoulders, handed each customer a mirror, and began work as Helen, the hairdresser. I was Belinda, your server, when I offered tomato and cheese sandwiches through an open window. I called them Melody and Magdalena, and while I suggest a new pair of names every season, Melody and Magdalena continue to be the names of choice. I tried Susie and Snap, but they just didn't take. We biked 2 mornings to Cinderella in Amazon Park by the Mad Duckling Theater production. The fairy godfather, dressed in sunless juice bags, told Cinderella to get a backpack. Tell your stepsisters to make their own lunch, he instructed. Answer asked why the stepsisters weren't nice. I told her they just hadn't been taught. After the play, she watched with adoration and waited to speak to Cinderella herself, adorned in thick, messy braids tied in ribbons and a funky pinafore with puffed sleeves and ruffles. We biked to the pool every day and bobbed our way between hundreds of bouncing bodies in the heat of the afternoon. We climbed the ladder to a platform, waited shivering in the stiff breeze near the top, and braced ourselves for the race down the cookie slide in Tangle. At bedtime, the kids climbed on the bottom bunk on the screen porch, where we read Wind in the Willows to the sound of crickets in the nighttime, chirps filling the deep dark beyond the screen. I'm the best reader in my class, Ezra offered, when we finished the story and before I turned off the light. I bet you are. Do you know the best way to get smart? Reading? Yes, but it's really learning new words, and the best way to learn new words is to read. It's vocabulary that builds brain power. Yeah, like ass, Ezra said. I thought she said aft, as mole and rat in the book are in the aft of the boat. No. Remember, Granny, Rat calls Mole a silly ass when he tries to row the boat. It's too hard. She was right. Mole is full of jealousy and pride on his first boat ride with Rat. He grabs the oars, ignoring Rat's warning that it's not as easy as it looks. In the whole wonky process, Mole overturns the boat. After being plucked from the river, cold and wet, Mole regrets being foolish. I'm very sorry indeed. I have been a complete ass, and I know it. Pop-Pop drives up in a shiny rig to pick up the kids. Hi, Brenda. How are you? Fine, I say, my chin up. I turn and go to the back of the garage to gather bags. I'm swell, but you're about to drive away with my granddaughters. We finished packing kids and things, and Pop-Pop said, goodbye, Brenda. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks. He turns around the new Honda Pilot, shining in the sun, and heads out of town to his cabin. The girls wave. They're smiling. This is good. Children can never have too many people who love them. But how do I compete with a drop-down screen and a dock on the lake? I don't want a Honda Pilot or a cabin in the woods. I just wanted to walk in, out of the office, while Papa read to the kids in a big wide chair. Maybe I'm more jealous of time. But when we moved to Eugene in 1975, for my husband to go to graduate school. We lived in Amazon student. How many people here? Hi, Doug. How many people here remember Amazon student? Well, I didn't want a teaching job because I was pregnant, so I substitute taught in English in high school. And I advertised in the paper, which you did, that I would be house cleaner. I'd never done it for anybody else, but I said two things, that I was fast and thorough. And I got 2 takes right away. And one of them was, I've changed names to protect people. One of them was the Spielmans, who lived way out on the edge of town in a big, huge, rambling, mostly stone house. And they moved to Eugene because Mr. Spielman worked for the aerospace industry in Los Angeles and had a heart attack at 46. And his doctor said, you have to get out of this industry and you have to leave this frenzied town. So they moved north. But he wasn't happy here. The weather wasn't good. The schools weren't good enough for David at 16. The grocery stores weren't good enough. And it was a really sad house. And every day, David and Mr. Spielman, his father, went to Harvey's for lunch. And they brought it home in white paper bags and each went to their separate rooms. When David and his father left the house for Hervey's burgers, I hustled into David's room to clean. It was a teenager's room full of stuff. David's grandmother sent gifts to him, always practical and always by the dozen. 1 dozen pairs of athletic socks, 1 dozen pairs of pajamas. I worked around these and dozens of other things. I pitched dirty laundry into the hallway and straightened the desk, only slightly. I had never touched David's television or home. On the way out the door to Hervey's burgers, David said to his mother in my presence, Mother, tell the maid not to touch my television.
Oh.
Mother, tell the maid not to touch my typewriter. I'm still in his room, tidying up, but barely. I had never touched David's television or royal typewriter, and I didn't plan to touch them today. I glanced at a page, rolled in the typewriter, and moved on. I turned back. I read the first line and the next. I couldn't stop. Was I violating David's warning? He had written a full page in the voice of Lynette Squeaky Broom, sentenced just 2 months before to life in prison for an attempt on President Ford's life. I read as far as I could read without rolling the paper in the oil. The onion skin page read, No, I'm not sorry about what I did. At first I thought this was parody, but there was nothing exaggerated or funny about it. The strange imitation was filled with frightful attention to detail. News reports highlighted Fromm's difficult relationship with her tyrannical father. Lynette Fromm's father was an aeronautical engineer. This was creepy. Squeaky Fromm was a devoted member of the Manson family. That was creepy. Mrs. Spielman talked to me every Wednesday. She didn't have a friend in the county or state but me. Maybe she knew it wouldn't be better 100 miles north where they were planning to move. She knew she didn't belong in this cold stone house or anywhere to anybody. Mr. Spielman, scarcely middle-aged, would still wander the house and complain. She would be at home, alone. I ached for this woman, only 10 years older than I was. Her life was already old. How did this man keep 250 African violets alive in the dining room while his wife was wilting? I didn't know what he should do for her, but I thought of 20 things that might make her smile. Go to a movie, walk on his beautiful property, find a synagogue, bring her flowers, let her drive to town, touch her on the shoulder. I can tell you where I was. I'm on 205 now. This is Mother's Day. My former husband called on a Saturday in May. Would you like to go to breakfast for Mother's Day? Sure, I said. I love Mother's Day. I have only 2 children. They're good girls, appreciative young women, especially now that they have families. They've always expressed gratitude as the language of heart. They write soulful cards. I bike through town early Sunday morning, glorious in sun and rain-drenched blossoms, to Via Dolce, a pop-up bakery and a pizzeria. Ed greets me in the entry. Happy Mother's Day, he says with a smile. We find a table near the window. Tell me about your trip with Azra and Kiela, he says. It's fun to share stories and act like we belong here together on Mother's Day, celebrating what we did well together and being grandparents. I would rather be the grandparents at the next table, getting ready to shuttle the cute 3-year-old to the home we share. I took the girls to the Dungeness Spit on the Olympic Peninsula. I tell the grandfather. They played for hours in the sun and sand behind a giant drift log on the beach. Kieli assigned me the role of nice mother, but she told me not to be too nice. When the tide came in, we packed up buckets and shovels and walked a mile through the woods back to the parking lot. No complaints about the long walk, he asked. No, not a one. The next morning, we hiked 4 trails in Olympic National Park, each one with poems posted in beautiful green metal signs along the trail. It was wonderful. I knew it, the poet himself, would love it. Azra read every single one, I told him. Her favorite was Dwayne Nayatan's poem, Spider, where the spider invites the reader to spin with him. I can't get over how great it was. I balance a bag of Via Dolce Biscotti in the grip of my handlebars and cruise along the bike lane sprinkled in dogwood petals, thick and soft as velvet, that cling to my bike tires. At church, I remembered the Mother's Day each of my daughters was confirmed. The elegance of the moment. I wish I had a record of the words the minister said that day that honored each of them. The affirmation of their very being, more than 20 years ago, might carry them through a rough patch one day when they really need it. I count on words, poems from Rumi to Jane Hirschfield, old hymns and popular songs, my daughter's heart-filled cards. Crying at the woods is sweet solace. It's what I do. This is the last chapter in the book. It's called Flexing Missile, page 291. Grace talked about the pandemic, and we all survived it here. I had a bit of a silver lining to the pandemic was that my Washington, D.C. family moved, thinking it was quite temporary, August of 2020, to my house with the 2 little boys to get help with school. Well, as you know, when we thought school would resume in a couple months, and it didn't, and they stayed with me for a year. And then learned they could be removed indefinitely and bought a house. So that was good. But the reason I could do that for a solid year is that my stepfather, my son-in-law, my son-in-law is a magnificent cook, and he made every single dinner for a solid year, and he did all the grocery shopping. I know how to do laundry, and my daughter Ani, who's here, knows how to vacuum, so we made it work for you. When Thanksgiving arrived, and they're all vegetarian. When Thanksgiving arrived, I was ready to leave the greasy handprints on my windows at home and set a dinner table somewhere else. That place was Pop Pop's house. I knew I would be offered a slice of turkey, which I was hungry for, and extra to take home. The little boys, vegetarians, were worried that a big old squawking turkey that roams our neighborhood with a partner and 10 pulls would be captured, plucked, and set on the table. A few feathers remaining from that pimpled flesh. The real roasted turkey, however, was tucked tastefully away on the kitchen counter. Pop Pop's wife was as gracious and generous as ever. It's infectious. Thankful for my bounty, I was grateful for the holiday and her welcome. I remembered the old French proverb, gratitude is the memory of the heart. I remember Azra's words when she was a little girl, after she asked why Pop Pop left my house. Then she said, so when Pop Pop found what he was looking for, why didn't he come back? He did, We all did. We all came back in one way or another, one version of it. I won't say it's all good, an expression that makes my teeth ache, because it's not all good, but what isn't good is pretty good. I often tell the kids we are lucky fish. Much comes to us because we're just plain lucky, or we've been afforded privilege for generations. On the ride home after Thanksgiving, the November night passed by my rain-streaked window. The moon, on its way to a beaver moon in a few days, moved in and out of towering Douglas fir silhouettes darker than the night. It was all good, it really was. If I ever write another book, I've decided I'll title it, How'd You Get There? Not the place, not how'd you get to Marrakesh necessarily, but maybe that too. But how did you land where you are? How did you get to this spot in the library? The first one is about my brother Bruce, who left college with a broken heart in 1968 and moved to the far, far north. We lived in Montana, and he left the University of Montana for the far north and rarely came back because the lower 48 was too hot and too crowded. He lived the life of a frontiersman, racing sled dogs, and 2 weeks shy of his 47th birthday, Bruce was training for the Yukon Quest when he plunged in frigid Little Atlas. The Quest, a 1,000-mile dog sled race from Whitehorse, Yukon to Fairbanks, Alaska, along the Gold Rush and mail routes, is the privilege of elite marathon athlete dogs. Bruce had won the quest that took him over frozen rivers and 4 mountain summits before, and he planned to win again. He raced the Iditarod twice, dodging the ice ridges and bad-tempered moose on the trail to place in the top 20, but his first love was the quest. Bruce drove his dog team down to the lake through the spruce, only shadows in late November, for a practice run. He never returned. The next day, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, mounted in a helicopter, pulled Bruce and 8 seasoned dogs, still harnessed to the white ash sled, out of Little Atlas Lake. We promised his family we would visit in the summer. In July, I traveled with my sister and her young family to the land of the midnight sun and beyond. We powered up the inside passage from Prince Rupert on the Alaska State Fair, camping in tents on the upper deck for 3 nights with other amiable travelers. We slept well on the ferry. The wood and steel boat creaked and groaned and rocked in rhythm with the night on the marine highway. In the morning, we watched gleaming icebergs float in the deep blue sea. Gulls and eagles perched on luminous ice boulders, each with an eagle eye on the water for a catch. Our trip ended in Skagway. From there, we drove the Klondike Highway, some dirt, some pavement, to Allen, British Columbia. The most beautiful place on earth boasts a travel brochure. We arrived in Allen, easily as beautiful as advertised, at the end of a long day, to meet the freighter canoe that would ferry us uplake to the landing for a 2-mile hike to Bruce's cabin. I worried about setting out in late afternoon winds as I watched a kayaker roll his kayak in the whipped-up waves. He rolled again and didn't right himself. I shouted my alarm, and an old-timer in a powerboat raced up the paddler from the water. When our boatman arrived, I asked if it was safe to set out in conditions like these. He chuckled. "This canoe is 20 feet long. I won't have any trouble." We snugged up life jackets and loaded the canoe. Once on the lake, the waves slapped the aluminum hulls, and I relaxed at the sight of the towering mountains in sepia tones. In an hour, we spilled onto a short stretch of beach, strung with Bruce's equipment, a sledge with a broken runner, a junky four-wheeler, an old VW Bug chassis for dogs to pull in summer training. Nothing had budged in a year. We piled some of our load in a wagon and set out on a sandy trail, lined on either side by wild roses and rose hips, to hike to the cabin. We arrived at the compound, one big cabin, one tiny cabin, and several outbuildings in various stages of construction, all littered with tools and paint cans, windows and doors and stuff. At 10 p.m., the sky was still light, colored in purple streaks. Brooke, my sister, knocked at the screen door. Our sister-in-law looked through the shadow of the screen I thought you were coming tomorrow. She pointed to where we would bunk, a tiny cabin with a sod roof, a healthy mat of grass, and a few wildflowers. Brooke and I entered the cabin and set our bags on the bunk. A pair of mittens, a pair of gloves, and one wool sock hung by clothespins on a rope over a kitchen table, where a peanut butter jar stood alone. Nothing had been touched since the early winter day 9 months ago, when Bruce camped here on a hunting trip. We stood at the window to watch Bill set up a tent for the kids and sighed with the gravity of where we were. Within seconds, I felt the cabin spin under my steady feet. Brooke said, "Do you feel that?" The shared experience surprised us, but didn't seem remarkable until later. The swirl was hours along. Bill and the kids didn't feel anything. We ruled out an earthquake. Was it a natural phenomenon out here in the border of 2 provinces, below a glacier and next to a river? I didn't want an easy woo-woo answer. My sister-in-law didn't skip a beat. That was Bruce. He was there. Days later, the ethereal event in the faintly lit cabin that first night was as real as ever. Bruce claimed a spot in the remote wilderness, and maybe he had a hard time leaving it behind. This is really a cabbage here story, titled Mail Clinic. At the end of her senior year, Ani calls from college in Minnesota to say she's sure she needs ACL surgery on the soccer knee. In a few days, her other knee hurts, then a thumb, and a second thumb. A local doctor finds an elevated blood sediment rate. He refers her to a rheumatologist at Mayo Clinic. I fly overnight and arrive at an early hour to find my daughter hobbling down the street to meet me. I weep at the sight of her. We drive to Rochester, passing herds of milk cows and sheep and lush farms on the way. Daffodils line the highway, and tulips burst in clusters next to mailboxes and large welcoming front porches, some screened, some not. When we arrive at the Mayo Clinic Overpark, I'm proud of my navigation skills, even if all signs do point to Mayo Clinic. The sun is fully up, and spring green forms a lace curtain around the first building. On our way to the 4th floor, my heart races as I prepare to hear a diagnosis. A reserve hope that my daughter doesn't have a lifelong illness. Ani is upbeat and prepared and doesn't seem troubled by, why me? Dr. Vindaha is calm and kind and beautiful, dressed in black with a dramatic gold pendant. She understands the worries, the fear of losing freedom a month before graduating from college and the month after. She talks about drugs that serve as interrupters, that tell your T cells to back off. They don't need to race to your joints to fight an infection that isn't there. This soft-spoken doctor with a musical lilt asks Ani about her family history. Yes, her maternal grandmother has had rheumatoid arthritis since age 50, not 21. Yes, her maternal great-grandmother also had. Dr. Vindaha explains the nature of an autoimmune disease and how pharmaceuticals are much more advanced than 30 years ago. At Rheumatology, the next of several very nice women with solid Minnesota accents will read today, outlines next steps. She has witnessed pain and loss and anger at this chest-high counter. I'm guessing she has maintained her kind, steady demeanor in the most challenging situations and probably put most patients at ease. On her way to the lab, Ani said, "That doctor was great. And it's not a death sentence. My hands don't have to look like his hands." After lunch, we find the clinic's cozy movie theater next to the chapel. What better place to while away some hours of waiting than a theater with a continuous run of sensible short films, a darkened room where no one knows you or your words. We slip into comfortable theater seats and catch a travel short on West England. I doze off a few minutes, but my attention picks up when I hear the narrator describe the sunny beaches of St. Ives and Penzance. 1 year later, Ani walks with no hobbling, and we travel to St. Ives for a holiday, as the Brits call it. Throngs of people flock to Penzance in bikinis and frolic on the beach in blue and temperatures in the sunny 60s. We copy the accents with great fun and conjecture that child abuse is slim in England, at least in Cornwall, where all these people on holiday address their children with love, bringing up the tail end of every sentence. It's time to eat your lunch, love. Annie will never get over arthritis, but she will get on with it. I will never get over the kindness of strangers that we are friends. They have something in common with those West Englanders who speak with patience to their loves.
Would you like to join us up here? The microphone. And now it's time for questions. Is this thing on? Feels like it's on. Light is sometimes on. Oh, that's right. I'm gonna walk around with it like, oh. Thank you both for those amazing words. Can we all give our readers another round of applause, please? It always surprises me how when Joan and I book our readers, we have no idea that this will happen, but it always seems to happen. But there's this serendipity. There's these themes that run between our readers' offerings that they had nothing to do with. I assume they didn't plan this, but I always feel I hear the echoes of different themes, and I felt that just so beautifully this evening. So thank you so much, both of you. You have both published books, an ambition for all of us. I would like to start with you, Grace, and then I'll ask the same question of you, Brenda. How did your writing practice change, or did it change after you published your first book?
Well, I guess I was, really excited that I got published, but then my second thought was, what else do I have to say? I was afraid maybe I didn't have anything else. But kind of searching around for, something to say, and I got a little panicked because I thought, this can't be book. I always wanted to write something, so I just needed something to write about. So, yeah.
Well, immediately after, I was happy, but I used a Luminary Press in town, and I took my stuff to them, and they did it. I didn't get published, but it's a hybrid publisher, and I like them. I recommend them highly. But afterwards, I fussed over how to spread the word, and it's really hard. It's a lot of work, and I have no appetite for social media, so I didn't do all that stuff. And finally, my wise daughter said, "Why don't you not worry about it? And just, why did you do this?" I didn't do it for mass representation, but I did it. Now I feel like it's good to get it in the hands of people who might read the book or like it. But I've kind of given up worrying about it. So now I'm writing them, because at first I didn't. I just worried about, what should I do and how do I do it?
Those are wise words. So publishing your first book did kind of, it sounds to me like there was a little bit of a crisis in your writing after that. Like, now I did this book, now what do I do? If I have to market it, or am I out of ideas? So there's like this huge thing, right? This big there's a letdown afterwards, right? But kind of there's an emotional cost to doing this, I guess, is what it sounds like it was. See what authors go through. It is true. It is true. You get this big thing out, and then you're like, and now what? All right. Well, thanks for those great answers. Okay. I want to ask Brenda this question. As a writer, who or what would you choose as your mascot, avatar, or spirit animal?
On these children, all those books. When I'm with them, I read things like Roald Dahl and Missing Me, all the good things. So I don't know what I would choose. Help me, somebody.
Suggestions?
Yes. Okay.
Hummingbird.
Oh.
You are so inquisitive. Generally.
Susan, do you
Yeah, I'm trying to think what animal or avatar could be, like something that's got a mountain for the natural world, for yourself. But that's when I read your book that just kept coming back to me how much you have to do.
Well, thank you. And that was one of the features of this lecture that I just heard about. Reading to children, reading adults to each other, is that it helps to build empathy. And if they're looking at a screen, it doesn't happen as well. So Kelsey Moore in the very back is one of the best teachers I've ever known, along with two people here that I taught. And she reads to her kids, to her students. And someone I know had their teenage children recently say to them, "Why did you stop reading to us when we got older?" And that's a good question. Yeah.
I just thought of.
Yeah. I do.
Very
That's about,
amazing.
We won't ask what kind of a dog. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for all that participation. That was great. I know that was an easy question. Grace, if you could invite 3 writers to dinner, dead or alive, who would they be? I can guess one. Definitely one. Who would they be?
Yeah. So good laugh. Maybe Ted Hughes, the one who left her and led to her suicide. I would want to let's see, I've actually been on a Zoom with Dory and Law, so I know her a little bit. Herman Hesse. That would be
That would definitely be quite a party. Okay, couple more. Boring. Oh, this is for you, Brenda. What is your favorite childhood book? And you can pick a couple. I know there's so many.
I love the book Missing Me by Cynthia Ryan. And she lived in Eugene for a time. Does she still? You know? I don't know anything about it, but Missing Me, I just love that. And I loved to read it to kids.
Great, Missing May. Okay. Grace, if you could tell your younger writing self anything, what would it be?
I'm not sure I can answer this question. Childhood part. Yeah, favorite child. A child's garden of verses. It has beautiful illustrations.
Okay. Good recommendations. All righty, we'll just get rid of that. Just a couple more, and then if the audience has any questions, we can just raise your hand and we'll come over. Oh, okay, this is a good one. Okay, Grace, I'm going to ask you this one. What is the most difficult part of your writing practice, or a difficult part of your writing practice?
Trying to be consistent trying to write every day. I find that I'll do that for a couple of weeks and then back off. I need to feel that there's something I want to write about. I know it is important to just write, you get your juices going, but yeah, I think I tend to be kind of late about that. And I was thinking about my spirit animal. There was a photo on Facebook, but it's a cat, but it's not lying on a windowsill, but not like cats usually position themselves. It's all stretched out like this. I thought, oh, that's me. That's my spirit.
Sprawled cat.
Yeah.
Brenda, what is the most difficult part about your writing practice, or a difficult part?
Just going inside because I stay outside as much as possible. And
In the house.
right. Nothing significant. I write fairly fast. I just edit, which is kind of tiresome.
Oh, that's good. Some people.
Edit while they write. Some people, like I do that, I just get it all out and then spend hours, days, months fiddling with or it all takes the same amount of time. Okay, it's time for audience questions. Does anyone have any questions for our readers? Ask anything at all? Yes, sir.
I know you both are teachers, or were teachers. I'm interested to hear how that has impacted your writing. Grace, I know you did ESL. Brenda, I know you did small children. So literacy has to be a kind of a big part of what you do.
Did everyone hear the question? Yeah, literacy is a big part of ESL too. I got to meet so many people from all over the world, especially when I lived in LA. There were students there from every part of the world, and I worked in a tutoring and just getting different perspectives on culture. And it really boosted my confidence because I think basically I'm more introverted than extroverted, but I had extroverted doing that job, and it really got me out of myself because I focused on what the students needed rather than my own little ego, and that was very helpful for me. And I think I still have to do that as a writer because I can get insecure if I jumble with my own writing. So, and if I just focus on somebody needs to positive.
I like little kids, and I like helping little kids learn to read, which was my job. And there's nothing quite like it when a kid gets it and can do it. And I liked being around. They gave me fodder for material, yes. I think I have a thing to book about one of my first grade students who asked me why I had that hole in right there. I don't know what I told him.
Yeah, teaching changes you. Sure does for the better, I think. Are there any other questions for our readers? If not, they are going to be up here talking about the books that they have for sale. You can come on up and have a chat with our readers. I hope you will do so. And thank you so much for joining us at the March 20th Windfall. Thank you so much.